this is Aubrey with Easy School Marketing. I'm excited you're here with me today. So we're going to talk about, will your family stay? 5 retention tips to help you answer that question. Now, obviously, as schools, we want to know who's leaving, who's staying, right? This helps us plan better, and figure out what's working, what's not. Why are people leaving? Like, this time of year is so important because it determines how many openings we have next year. It determines our marketing strategy so much. So let's dive into some 5 tips that can help you kind of determine, is a family going to leave or stay? Number 1, so teacher tracking. So what do I mean by this? So look, teachers are usually in communication with students and parents more than like the average administrator, okay? So teachers are a very good source. I know schools that actually have forms that teachers can fill out if they are in discussions with parents and hear like kind of what I call a red flag conversation where they're like, this could be a retention issue. Like, this person's either unhappy or mentions, that they're not having the experience that they had at X school or something like that. Also, interestingly enough, teachers can overhear what students say. Yes, it's true. It's amazing, especially for the younger grades, how open students are when, teachers will just be like doing something and in the background, little Johnny is saying, my mommy and daddy said that this school costs too much money and we're going back to public school next year. Like, teachers hear a lot, okay? And so, it's good for teachers to pass that information along via a form. I've also heard that a lot of schools use like their team meetings that they have every week to report out different key retention conversations that teachers have had. So whatever you're doing to track that information, make sure teacher tracking is on your top of the list, because that is one way to figure out if families are leaving or staying, and then to have the follow-up conversations with them, right? Because we never just want to assume, it's always good to have a follow-up conversation then and find out what their experience is and perhaps how you can retain them still, right? Number 2, surveys. Now, this is really important. I've seen schools flat out send a survey that asks, it's maybe part of a survey that asks, are you planning to continue your journey next year? Are you planning to continue at this school next year? Yes, no, undecided. Why or why not, right? You can be as forward as you want, or you could be discreet and maybe you include in your survey a question about if they would recommend the school, why or why not, and see where they fall on that continuum and figure out then, okay, so if, we surveyed, like 100 people responded to this survey and 50% said they wouldn't recommend it, then we've got a problem, potential retention risk, right? So surveys are an excellent tool, absolutely. And number 3 is what I call the administration check-ins. So administration check-ins are great, and I highly recommend them between December and March. And what are these? So this is usually like a phone call from, division heads or head of school or different administrators, just to see how families are doing, right? And hear about their experience and take the time to actually chat. If it's in person, it could be a coffee, just some way where you're touching base with that family, right? During this key time period, definitely earlier rather than later. So December, January, that's the ideal time. By the time you get to February, March, you're pushing it, right? So it's really understanding how that family is doing, what concerns they have. Like, I absolutely encourage those people, administrators, to ask, what challenges are you having? Or, is there anything that we can do to improve what we're doing here at school to help your experience, like to improve your experience, right? And that is key, because oftentimes we say, oh, how are you doing? And then we kind of flow with a nicety nice conversation. No, we actually need to ask direct questions like, how's your experience going? How's Johnny doing? As a family, are you feeling connected? You could even use the Connect 4 framework and ask them, like, do they have friends in the classroom? Are they feeling connected to their teacher? Are they feeling connected to their child's experience? Are they feeling connected to the classroom? Like, those are good indicators. So those could be topics of conversation. For sure. If you are able to do that and connect with those families during that time period, that will give you a good idea of where things stand heading into kind of, re-enrollment period, right? Okay, number 4, third-party interviews. So I'm sure you're aware, but at ESM, we do a lot of third-party interviews. Now, why is this important? Some people actually prefer to, they don't feel comfortable really sharing what's truly on their mind and their true intentions to the administration, not because they think the administration is going to do something bad, but just because it just feels like, you don't want to put yourself in that weird place. So third-party interviews are a great way for parents to feel kind of comfortable and in a safe and confidential environment to share to someone who is not connected to the school what they're actually feeling and going through, and if they intend to stay. Believe it or not, a lot of the interviews we do, we literally ask if they're planning to stay, whether they're planning to stay through next year or planning to stay through graduation, right? And parents will be very honest and open. So I highly recommend using third-party interviews if you're trying to get a good understanding of what your parents are thinking and feeling, and if they're planning to stay. In addition, a lot of the times what we discover are there some key pieces there that the school can actually use to retain more families. So there might be like this one issue the school didn't realize, and if the school corrects the issue, the families might stay, right? So something to think about. Now, number 5, attendance and engagement. So often during this period, a lot of schools are hosting either information nights about the next level or information nights about the next grade, or like sneak peeks into the next grade, something like that. So if you are, which I hope you are, this is a good time to track attendance. Who is coming? Who is not? Why? Maybe make some phone calls, figure out why those people aren't there, right? In addition, if you're doing an email drip series about like educating to the next level, another thing I highly recommend, you can actually look at open rates and see who's opening and who's not. And that might be a phone call or a conversation follow-up, right? To figure out, okay, what's that family's experience like? And that is a really good way to figure out if families are going to stay or not. Now, I said 5, but guess what? Bonus. Number 6. This is very interesting. So a live list. So that's last year, but not this year donors. Okay. So we often work with schools to shorten their fundraising season so that it ends December 31st. And when we do this, those schools are able to pull their live lists in January. And that is so helpful because they can see who gave last year but not this year, who decreased their gift, another red flag moment, right? And they can say, okay, I wonder what's going on with that family. Because usually there is a direct link to either they're unsatisfied, there could have been a change in circumstances with that family that the school doesn't know about. Like there's so many things that giving reflects. So if a parent feels very connected and satisfied with their experience and they've normally given, and then they stop giving, it's an indicator, something's going on, right? So it's worth a conversation. And you don't mention the gift in the conversation, just saying. You don't mention the gift in the conversation, you're just merely asking like, how's your experience? Like, what's going on? How are you feeling connected to the school? How can we improve what we're doing? That sort of conversation, right? Very important. So I'd love to hear from you. What's working for you in finding out if parents are leaving, if families are leaving or staying? I'd love to hear. Email me at Aubrey@easyschoolmarketing.com. I look forward to chatting with you soon.